living fossil. A term that brings to mind primeval organisms that have withstood millions of years of evolution, yet remain visually similar to their ancestors. Oftentimes, these relics may be the only living members of their lineage remaining on Earth. Tales of creatures like the tuatara, coelacanth, and horseshoe crab have captivated people for about as long as we've known about them. The small group of living fossils we talk about today is considerably more subtle. You might find one in the Southeast Asian fish market and think little of it. Or you might come across another at a well-connected aquarium store. These are the Gonorynchiformes fishes. The Gonorynchiformes, there is no H, is a small yet diverse order of fishes with a disjointed distribution. 3 extant families exist in the order. The Chanidae containing the milkfish, chanos, and its extinct relatives, the Gonorynchidae containing the beaked salmons, or gonorynchus, and its extinct relatives, and the Kneriidae containing the shelliers, which are Kneria and Peninsula, the hinge-mouthed Phractolaemidae and Sorgii, and 2 pedomorphic forms, Kneria and Gracioides. Even the visually impaired person can tell these groups apart. As for the aforementioned distribution, the milkfish is found from the Indian Ocean to the Pacific. Gonorynchus has a vaguely Gondwanan distribution with a northern lineage, and the Kneriidae are found in sub-Saharan Africa. Now, how did scientists determine that this motley association of fishes was related? Gonorynchiform fishes are members of the superorder Ostariophysi, one of the world's most diverse fish suborders. Every fish covered in depth so far in Featherfin films is a member of this clade. It's my favorite. Members of the superorder usually possess a Weberian apparatus. This collection of bones behind the skull aids in the fish's hearing and has likely allowed this lineage to colonize the world. Sounds interesting, doesn't it? One of the largest, most important clades of fishes is linked together via bone connections, creating excellent hearing, allowing them to navigate their aquatic abodes more effectively than their competition? It doesn't exist in the Gonorynchiformes. The swim bladder and neurocranium are connected, but not with the specific series of bones seen in catfishes, carps, and friends. For this reason, the Gonorynchiformes is placed in the subclade Anatomical, all alone. What appears to be Weberian building blocks does exist, however, so why not explain what goes on directly behind the head of these fishes? The first pleural or chest cavity rib is enlarged and nestled to the anterior portion of the swim bladder, wrapped in connective tissue, much like otophysin fishes. The swim bladder amplifies sound, while the thickened rib helps connect it to the brain case. Approaching the brain case, the neural spines are greatly reduced in size, which probably reduces the signal loss when traveling up the vertebrae. Finally, the neural vertebrae articulate directly with the enlarged occipital arches, which also aids vibration transmission. With these anatomical modifications, your average Gonorynchiform fish has better hearing than your average non-stereophysin fish by an unknown amount. Another major Gonorynchiform synapomorphy is the loss of jaw teeth. This one is much easier to explain. No fish in this order eats anything faster or larger than juvenile sardine that we know of. Jaw teeth are useless when everything an animal consumes is soft or slow. They also may break if the fish feeds on hard surfaces constantly, so the Gonorynchiformes that do that have keratinous jaws instead. The last synapomorphy linking the Gonorynchiformes I'll cover is modification to the gill chamber for particle feeding. In all genera but Gonorynchus, the last few gill rakers help form a mucus-lined muscular pouch behind the head to collect particulate matter from the water. Think of it like a gizzard, but for filter feeding. Gonorynchus has quote-unquote toothed pharyngeal plates instead of this discrete organ, so its last few gill rakers are modified for filtering as well. Since the water doesn't directly flow towards the organ as the fish breathes, Gonorynchiformes have to consciously dilate the opening and place food in the water. Food particles are trapped in the mucus, creating small boluses. When the pouch is full, the contents are squeezed into the pharynx, to later flow into the esophagus. Finely branched gill raker filaments keep food from flowing out. Gonorynchiformes are weird. So weird that scientists have struggled to classify them until the end of last century. Fishes from the genus lending its name to the order, Gonorynchus, have been known to science since the days of Linnaeus, yet scientists only agreed on its relationships in the 1960s. Initially, Gonorynchus was classified as a strange carp. Then it and chanos were considered related to Clubiformes, or herrings. Clubiformes used to be the group containing many of the miscellaneous teleosts with soft fin rays. Balancion realized the two were more related to each other than other fishes as long ago as 1846. You could thank the membrane connecting the swim bladder with the first pleural rib for that. He put them between the pipes and the sardines. He was ignored, and Gonorynchus and chanos were placed in separate families throughout the 1800s. In fact, some had refuted the consideration that the families could be related. As for the other two lineages, Kneriidae was classified as a distinct family from its discovery in the mid-late 1800s, in the large Physostome clade. Physostome fishes have their swim bladders directly linked to their stomachs, and is the primitive state in the Actinopterygii. It's not a clade anymore, but a state of being. Ichthyologists also noted the similarities of Phractolaemidae to Gonorynchus soon after its discovery. Grassyichthys and Chromaria initially had their own families in the aforementioned clade before being added to the Gonorynchiformes in the 1960s. The first person to group all the Gonorynchiformes together as a clade was Gosline, but he placed the group as a suborder of Clubiformes. Finally, Greenwood was the first to recognize that the order was distinct and shares a common ancestor with Saprindiformes. Other ichthyologists broadly accepted this hypothesis, despite some objections from Gosline. It took cladistic and fossil analysis to unambiguously link these fishes together. Are you confused? I don't blame you. Now most of the technical stuff is over, let's get into these four distinct extant lineages, starting from least to most derived. That's Gonorynchidae, Chanidae, Kneriidae, and Phractolaemidae. First up is Gonorynchus, meaning angled snout. Like its milkfish cousin, it's the only living member of its family, but there are 5 species in the genus, unlike the monotypic milkfish. There's a northern lineage and a southern lineage. Gonorynchus has a disjointed, vaguely Gondwanan distribution, living near the coast of South Africa, Chile, and Oceania. Hawaii has their own endemic species, Gonorynchus moseley. Because of their distribution, Gonorynchus is a fish of many names, including beaked salmon, mousefish, sand eel, and many more that I won't bother mentioning. Its pointed head, elongated body, fins set far back, down-turned mouth with fleshy lips, and single external barbel at the snout's tip give it a distinctive look, like a mix of a loach and a pike. Why specify an external barbel? Gonorynchus has a second one, dangling from its palate. As for coloration, they have a light tan body color with white fins tipped in black. The fish may also show a bit of iridescence. The Gonorynchidae is the basal-most lineage of the Gonorynchiformes, according to genetic data. This tracks to my belief that the Asteriophysi evolved from medium-sized bottom-dwelling fishes. Little is known about Gonorynchus' natural history. Their larvae are transparent, skinny, and pelagic. Being nocturnal burrowing animals, most people won't see them unless you go on a Gonorynchus hunt. Their diet is another mystery, but we can conclude that it consists of food found on the ocean floor. Gonorynchus can protrude its jaw slightly. This may not sound like a massive feat, but few lineages of basal fishes can do this. The kinematics of this are unclear, and would bloat the video if I go into detail. Gonorynchus ranges in size from 12 inches standard length, which is Gonorynchus moseley and abbreviatus, to 24 inches total length, which is Gonorynchus gonorynchus. So they're a bit large for many aquaria. The growth potential, along with their lack of bright colors and nocturnality, keep these fishes out of captivity. If by chance you're an eccentric rich person who wants to set up a tank for these guys, you'll likely need a deep live sand bed and at least an 8-foot long tank for Gonorynchus gonorynchus. Add some rocks or something for the fish to hide under. They don't seem to be territorial. Besides that, you're on your own. Like its relative the milkfish, Gonorynchus is reported to taste good. Its shape doesn't lend itself to big fillets, and the fish is likely a pain to harvest, so it's a rarity on American plates. Of all the fishes in the Gonorynchiformes, chanos, the milkfish, lays the fish title the straightest. It's also the only surviving member of the Chanidae. The fish was first described to science in 1775 by Finnish biologist Peter Forsskål. It's unclear where the name came from. Chanos has a wide natural range, inhabiting the Indian and Pacific Oceans. It's probably one of the most generic-looking fishes in existence, with a silvery torpedo-shaped body, no extra fins, and few accoutrements to make the fish stand out in any way visually. Overall, it looks like a large, streamlined herring minnow hybrid. Speaking of huge, milkfish can reach a size of over 5 feet 11 inches long, though it more commonly maxes out at around 3 feet. Chanos' size precludes me from trying to talk about it in the home aquarium. Leave it for a public aquarium who wants to show off some huge herring-like fish. The milkfish is a pelagic schooling fish spending its days looking for large plankton bones. It's a filter feeder, despite the tiny mouth. The fish grazes on periphyton in addition to the plankton. The term plankton is doing a lot of heavy lifting, as milkfish can and will eat small fish like sardines. Milkfish are euryhaline, which means they can live in any water salinity, but they spend most of their adult lives in marine environments. A 3-foot-long, active pelagic fish needs space to roam after all. Milkfish are regarded in a way the most relevant member of the order to humans, as it's a common food fish in the native range, as well as an extinct port fish. Milkfish are strong fighters, capable of leaping several feet, so they're sought after as a challenge. Their size, position on the food chain, and the ability to tolerate different salinities make them a viable choice for intensive farming in tropical areas. In the Philippines, it's a delicacy, especially the fatty belly section. They call it bangus. Watch out for all the little pin bones, though pressure cooking makes them much softer from what I've read. Incidentally, this belly section lacks bones. Americans are a huge fan of bony fish meat, so milkfish isn't the most common sight here. The Kneriidae is Africa's answer to the smallest riverine Spireniformes found in Asia and North America. Most fishes in this family scarcely grow beyond 4 inches long and hail from waters that move. Depending on who you talk to, there are 4 or 5 living genera in this family. Kneria and Kneria are your shell ears, probably the fish an AI would spit out if it was asked to draw a small rheophylic bottom roller. Dromeria and Gracioichthys are scaleless, nearly transparent, pedomorphic genera, and struggle to grow any longer than an inch. Lastly, there's Phractolaemidae, but that fish is bizarre enough to deserve its own section. Of these genera, Kneria and Kneria contain the bulk of the species, with 30, or 15 for most genera. A couple of these were discovered as recently as last year, showing how much biodiversity we have yet to discover in remote places. These genera are distinguished by body shape, as Kneria is slightly skinnier on average, and the lack of ear-shaped organ on male Tubercula. Oh right, forgot to mention the organ. When male Kneria mature, they develop this organ that's used in the spawning process. They latch onto the females with it as both fish feed their gametes. That last trait may sound like something an AI hallucinated. It's not, promise. Another neat trick that Kneria and its relatives can do is breathe air, since they hail from waters that seasonally grow stagnant or dry up. Their swim bladders are the respiratory organs of choice. A direct connection to the digestive tract sure is convenient for aerial respiration, isn't it? Kneria and Kneria probably live a similar lifestyle, scraping algae off of rocks and flowing water, and spewing gametes in large quantities during spawning season. Kneria and Kneria are exceptionally rare sights in the aquarium hobby. It's a pain to import fishes from Africa first of all, and the brown African fish market is already cornered by Synodontis, Pantodon, Tetinopoma, Polypterids, amongst others. It's going to take this video or some other piece of Kneria media going viral for any non-nerd demand to exist for them. The BSSW member Stanislav Kisyuk owned some Kneria and claimed that they were active, peaceful, voracious feeders that needed interspecific contact. He even claims that Kneria stappersii has been captive bred. Knerias are too small to eat, so no cuisine section. A fossil Kneriid has been discovered in Tanzania, making the Kneriidae the final Gonorynchiform lineage discovered in the earth instead of swimming in the water. Mahangictes singidensis from the Eocene grew about as large as modern relatives, and even may have possessed the shell-shaped opercular apparatus of Kneria. Grassyichthys and Chromaria are pulled apart by the miniaturization, where Grassyichthys being the smaller fish, which grows to about 2 cm, than Chromaria, which grows to 4. Little is known about them, and I'd ironically be able to cover them better in a video about miniaturized fishes. They live in swamps and large aggregations. Grassyichthys may have lost the upper branchial organ. When you're the size of the average baby cherry shrimp, what's the point of having an organ to filter out tiny particles? You're the particle. Lastly, we get to one of the weirdest looking fishes out there. Phractolaemidae and Sorgii, the hinge mouth. Why the name? Wait until you see it feed. The hinge mouth has the most perplexing jaw morphology in most vertebrates, and it took until 2024 for scientists to make sense of it. First of all, its lower jaw is hinged backwards. It swings forward like a Motorola Razr, rather than opening up and down like nearly every vertebrate on God's green earth. Secondly, its upper jaw is extremely atrophied, merely supporting the cartilaginous proboscis. Proboscis? Yeah. Instead of the upper and lower jaws properly bordering the mouth, food enters Phractolaemidae through a retractable proboscis. When retracted fully, the proboscis sort of resembles the tip of the Red Bull RB16's nose. This proboscis is tipped with rough unculi to grip the tiny food particles that Phractolaemidae is forced to eat due to having such a specialized oral apparatus. To feed, the fish swings its lower jaw forward, extending the proboscis from its pocket atop the head. As the fish extends the proboscis, the gape widens, and the fish slurps up the desired food particles. The split adductor mandibulae muscles provide fine control over the apparatus, allowing it to move in multiple directions and even spit out undesirable particles. And what does Phractolaemidae feed on with this rubicule bored mouth? Detritus, algae, and microfauna. How anticlimactic. I assume Phractolaemidae has such a strange mouth because it feeds on detritus directly above and below it, and it uses the thing as a snorkel to breathe air. Come to think of it, eating on low-quality food like algae and detritus leads to a vast array of mouth adaptations to consume it more efficiently. Look at lower Korean catfishes, labionine cyprinids, Phractolaemidae caricans, and some algivorous cichlids. The most common involves some form of reducible mouth structure. Phractolaemidae just so happens to have the strangest. Despite having that thing for a mouth, Phractolaemidae was named for the gill covers that meet under the head. Oh, and its nostrils are mounted on tubes like a bowfin of a shear. These fishes are known to have a powerful sense of smell and can breathe air, so we can assume that Phractolaemidae has a powerful sniffer too. It's found in slow-moving warm Congolese waters where air breathing makes sense. It doesn't seem to occur in high densities. The fish appears to be most active under the cover of darkness, a trait it shares with Gonorynchus. It even has the strangest human use case of all Gonorynchiformes. It's used in traditional Nigerian medicine as a poisoning treatment, as well as a potion to avoid people trying to take your life. I guess it's the fish to get if you have ops. Phractolaemidae is by far the most common fish in the Gonorynchiformes in aquaria, but that's like winning a fastest K-car contest. Phractolaemidae sansorgi is still a very exciting captivity regardless. I owned one for a brief time, named Snidely Whiplash for its nostrils. It was a baby that arrived a little bit beat up. They don't like high flow, nor do they compete for food very well. I had mine with Danios and a Synodontis catfish, so you do the math on its fate, unfortunately. Its peculiar mouth means that you can keep it with the smallest of fish without worrying that they'll become lunch. They're also peaceful, so nippy or boisterous tank mates are a no-go. It may be a good idea to make it the only bottom feeder in the tank. Phractolaemidae also appreciates a soft substrate to dig through, so gravel may not be the best choice, though it can pick through the gaps. It probably wouldn't hurt to let some biofilm grow in the tank so the fish has somewhere to graze. Since its mouth is tiny and super specialized, be sure your henchmouth's meals can fit in it. Small and or soft are the way to go. As a nocturnal fish, hiding spots are mandatory so it can rest during the day. Otherwise, you'll see the fish looking miserable huddled in a corner. Floating plants would also be appreciated to dim the lights and give a nice place to rest when the fish needs to come up for air. Overall, the henchmouth doesn't seem too hard to take care of as long as it needs for slow water, hiding spots, and small food particles are taken care of. It's the closest thing you'll get to owning Ovipedia. Come to think of it, the Gonorynchiformes has a little bit more in common than at first glance. The entire order gets at least some of their calories directly from the bottom of the water body they inhabit. They get them out the mud, as they say. You know what to do if you want to hear about benthic fishes and sports car racing. This is an Synodontis Man signing off. Adios.